What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my first impressions for Outcast, A New Beginning, a sequel to a cult classic from 1999 that just so happens to be one of those games that really pushed video games in general into the 3D open world space, and while it certainly wasn't the first, I would say, to do any of those things, it was one of the steps along that journey. So when I heard about this sequel being announced, I knew I had to jump into it, though I admit I originally thought it was supposed to be a remake, but it is in fact a full-blown sequel. And while I will talk a little bit about some of these things a little more broadly, I will say that my initial first impressions are that it is a very beautiful open world to explore, a lot of fun sci-fi concepts along with an alien race. However, gameplay-wise seems to be a fairly standard action adventure that I think is probably just a little bit more expensive than it should be at full AAA price of $60. So let's dive into it a little bit. Now, story-wise, we return as Cutter Slade, the protagonist from the first game, who wakes up from a dreamlike state, very lost and confused, with, I would say, semi-amnesia. He doesn't know exactly everything about what's going on, but has a general gist of what he was a part of at one point, that is to say, his name, the fact that he's part of a military organization, but not much else, and he quickly comes into contact with the local alien race known as the Talons, which are being driven to extinction just about by local human invaders who have sent an army of robots and humans to mine the world of Adelpha for resources. And just like in the first game, these local aliens have a prophecy about our arrival and call us the Uruk-hai. After going through the tutorial section, which shows you basically how to play the game, very in-depth I might add, you're given an explanation of what has happened and what you need to do to be sent back to your own world. Basically, the alien race here has gods known as Yods, very on the nose there, but the Yods, as it were, resurrected you, and speaking through their prophets, they will send you back to Earth if you liberate these people from the oppressive human regime, which throws us into our non-linear open world. We need to tackle the bases of the enemies here, which are mostly robots, but there are a few humans in there. Gather their supplies to power up the natives' defenses, as they have some ancient technology that is protecting them from complete annihilation, but they are quickly running out of supplies, and you also need to unite them by going around to their villages and empowering them to fight back, and doing both of those things is what progresses the story, but you're free to do them in any order that you want. Which brings us to the rest of the game, which is exploring and combat, basically. Now, exploration-wise, we have a ton of options for movement. It's a very movement-heavy game. We get a jetpack right away, and while your options are initially limited, a few skill upgrades later, and you'll have the ability to use that jetpack to quickly fly around the map, boosting several times, sort of skimming over the landscape, which you can then upgrade to boost and go even faster, which you can also do for the glide ability. So while you're initially a little limited, a short ways into the game, it becomes very open in terms of how you get about the world, which is pretty fun given that the scenery that you're passing by is also a pretty gorgeous environment. And so far, the village quests helping out with the main story basically has been a pretty good time, I would say. Those quests have been pretty interesting, but the actual open world is unfortunately a little generic. It would, I would say, definitely fall into that very run-of-the-mill type of open world where there's essentially a checklist of things to do. And while this will lead to good upgrades like more health, resources to unlock extra skills and abilities, unlocking fast travel waypoints, etc., it's definitely the kind of gameplay you've seen very often in many other titles. You're definitely going to be encountering some combat while you do that, however, and it is a mostly fun action system. You have a big shield you can block most attacks with, though blocking too much will eventually cause it to break and need to recharge. This same shield allows you to do a melee attack, and then later on you'll get a handful of guns that you can shoot with, such as a rifle or a pistol, but these individual weapons can then be modified to attach extra modules with, which can change fundamentally how the game operates, such as turning it into an automatic or applying concussive shots, etc. And that is where the world's resources come in. The humans aren't here for nothing, but rather they are mining the resources, and those resources just so happen to power your equipment, as well as your upgrades. Now, once you start acquiring those upgrades, you can do all sorts of things. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of traversal things, but combat-wise, you'll be able to wind up bigger melee attacks, take more damage, unlock abilities such as a sort of ground pound from air, and as you help out villages, you'll unlock special abilities such as an area paralyze or the ability to mount this giant creature and take it into combat and fly around the map with it, for instance. So the game does have some fun things going on. However, taken as a whole, I would say that while I'm having a decent amount of fun with it, having paid full price for this game, I can say that it would have been better for about $20 less right here at the first impressions, because so far nothing about it's really blowing me away. It's a lot of gameplay I've seen before. It's also a little janky in places. There's been a handful of technical problems. It's crashed on me. I've had some issues with an autosave getting corrupted, which had me forced to delete it and load back a couple saves, and sometimes the controls can be a little wonky. So again, broadly, so far, beautiful game, fun to explore, combat's decently fun, but it's not really wowing me in any way, which is going to make it hard to justify its price tag. And over the course of my review for this game, that's what I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Now, review-wise, I don't think this is going to take particularly long. I think it looks to be a pretty standard map clear for an open-world action-adventure, so this will likely only take me a handful of days, which I plan on knocking it out before Dragon's Dogma 2 launches next Friday, so we shouldn't have to wait too long to see if this winds up being worth the full price, which is pretty much going to do it for this video. So if you enjoyed it, or if you're looking forward to the review for this one, do remember to like, comment, subscribe, stick around. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.